It's a difficult question, and I guess it's a bit of a existential question, right? What do we see as the role of mayor in this city? Why do we want to have leaders that guide the city forward, and what do we hope their vision to be? And the decision to run for mayor on my part was because I see the city right now as being in some ways stagnated and in needing new vision, new fresh ideas, and you know leadership that has enthusiasm and ambition for the city moving forward. So I decided to run to provide those kinds of aspects in that role. I've got a great deal of respect for Mayor Jackson-Stanley. I think she's been very successful throughout her run. But at this point, after 3 terms, I think it is time to see a different person in that role. And after a lot of soul searching and discussion with people close to me, I made the decision that perhaps I'm the one to do that. I've got a lot of experiences in my background that give me insights that other candidates in this race, both for council and for mayor, don't have. A lot of the issues we see in the city that we see along racial lines are really cultural and historic issues related to socioeconomic conditions for these people. And these socioeconomic conditions exist in large part because of racial divides 50 and 60 years ago, but they don't stay simply in that community. I've talked about my background with my parents, with drug addiction, with violence, um, a lack of opportunity. Um, I come from a family. My father was a construction worker. My mother went from job to job, gas stations, places like that. My grandparents, factory worker, grocery teller. And with the issues I've seen and the things I've dealt with in my past, I've got a lot of insight that I think can help move this city forward. Though I may not be African American, I understand what many people in Ward 2 and Ward 3 deal with. Likewise, I understand what things, in the community broadly, what we're seeing and what we're sensing. So, historically, Ward 2 and Ward 3 have been marginalized because of the racial divides in this country and in this community, the Jim Crow era. These were people that were brought here as factory workers typically. Once the factories disappeared, the job opportunities did as well. I've talked about in other cases the socioeconomic divide that exists, um, broken down by election ward. The Census Bureau shows us that there are neighborhoods in the city of Cambridge, large swaths, that have household incomes less than $25,000 a year. That kind of lack of hope for these people, I think, is part of what is damaging to our community, and it's what holds back the city of Cambridge as a whole. You've got to have hope throughout the city, and that's my vision, is to help bring that hope to the people that are living in these situations. To say that, though I may not be able to move ahead immediately now, there is hope that in the next year or 5 years, through job programs, through continuing education, adult learner programs, through community growth and outreach, that we can start solving these issues that are very systemic, but that don't have to exist for the next 50 years. These won't be solved in a year or 2 years, but these are things that we can set a foundation and build toward, giving opportunity throughout our entire city for everyone, regardless of background. Right. So, right now, we see that code enforcement in the city is lacking and is limited. We had 3 code enforcement employees in the city. One has left. We're down to 2 individuals that are trying to go citywide and ensure that these houses are up to standard. And it's a darn near impossible job to do that with that short staffing. So we need to have code enforcement staffing available that's able to go out there and hold landlords and property owners accountable when they're placing tenants into properties that are well below human standards. Moving beyond that, we've got to have a system in place that allows the city to provide penalties that are actually going to make the changes, right? If a fine for a particular code violation is $50 and you're only going to be assessed 3 times a year, I'll pay the $150 rather than the $3,000 repair if I'm a landlord looking only at a dollars and cents outlook with regard to this, and not an outlook of what's right for the tenants and for the city and for the people here. Moving beyond that, we've got to talk about things like land banking. Land banking was established at the state level for communities like Cambridge specifically. And once it was established and put into place and made allowable by state law, we didn't take it and run with it. We need to get properties that aren't safe and aren't producing revenues for the city and aren't up to human standards out of the hands of individuals that are holding them and into the hands of those that will invest in the city of Cambridge. And finally, I think there's a real opportunity here as well to start working towards some additional home ownership for people. Right now, 65 to 67% of the properties in the city of Cambridge are held by landlords. They're not owner-occupied properties. There's a time to move forward here and say, when properties do come into city possession, we need a program like what we see in Baltimore City with vacants to value, where first-time home buyers can invest in these properties, purchase them below market rate, make repairs, and then have the ability to become homeowners, knowing that they're going to be invested in the community because they invested in the property they have. When I was younger, I had run-ins with the police, 17, 18, 19, 20, and I looked at the police almost as the enemy. And I think there are a lot of people in our community that feel that same thing now. But what I know is the police aren't the enemy, but they have to be visible in the community. They have to build relationships, and we've got to have a situation where people don't expect the police only to come when there's a problem to, uh, you know, make some effort to address a problem and then leave. You know, Catching a football with some kids or helping a mother with her groceries. These kinds of community efforts can really build trust that don't currently exist within the community between the police and the people. And that's what I want to see. You have a police department that is the most visible aspect of your city government. We need to have that police department be a friend to the people of the city. And I think that we have an opportunity now with new hires, with the hiring freeze being removed, to bring in new people that can add to that community sense for this department. So I'd be, and I this is the mayoral candidate who has a great vision for the city of Cambridge and a great desire to have a place where people want to be, they want to stay, they want to come to. I see kind of a mixed use property there that has lots of public access to the waterways, to the creek, but also can provide event space and kind of almost a mini version of what they have in Columbia with Merriweather Post, where we can bring in acts of various levels of popularity that contribute to the economy here and bring visitors and they shop in our community and they go to our stores and our restaurants downtown, but also that contributes to the vitality and the I think the level of fun that exists in living in Cambridge, the level of desirability to be here. Um, I'd like to see something that is, of course, very well thought out. Um, I don't want to see us build something that in 50 years is obsolete. We talk about the success of the Inner Harbor in Baltimore, going back to that city yet again, but right now Harbor Place is a bit of a, a problem for them there. They've got empty retail space and they don't know what to do with it because they built for a model that worked in the 1970s and not a model that works in 2020. So we've got to have something that I think that is somewhat modular or can be adapted over time as well. I mean, we know what's happened. President-elect Biden will be the next president. Anything that the President Trump's doing at this time is, it's he's holding on to hope by a thread, realistically.
Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.